afternoon, everyone. Hope you and your family are all safe in these difficult times. I'm Hari, and I'll be the moderator for this trial. We have a tremendous panel today to discuss how we can leverage technology to reinvigorate travel and tourism in India. Right. So before I get started, here's how the flow of events. For the next 50 minutes, we'll get to know the panel a bit, and I will introduce you to them. I will say a few things to kick off the session and tee up some ideas, and then I'm going to hand it over to the panel. And what I'd like to do is to have one of our panelists go first in terms of sharing their insights, and then open it up for questions. Because if there's something fresh in your mind, I want you to be able to ask it immediately and get the answers, and we can talk about it and discuss about it as well. As a word of caution to our esteemed panel, please don't mind if I cut in while you're in your zone. It's just me being the moderator, trying to keep time and conversation in check, right? And if Priyanka, if you can, be ready to feed me the questions from the audience as and when they come, and that'll be great. Thanks for that. To quickly introduce our distinguished panel of business leaders, we have with us today, starting with Mr. Aloke Singh, Chief Executive Officer, Air India Express. He has 3 decades of diverse experience in air transport and travel, with leadership in Air India, Alliance Air, and the Gulf-based national carrier. Currently, he heads Air India Express, India's first international budget airline, as the CEO. With a fleet of 24 Boeing 737-800 aircrafts, Air India Express operates from 14 international destinations in 21 Indian cities. Now, what's interesting, with $691 million revenue in FY 19-20, this airline has one of the lowest unit costs in the world and has reported net profits for the past 5 years up to 2020. That's a feat, right? Before taking this assignment at Air India Express, Mr. Singh was associated with an aviation advisory and consulting firm in New Delhi. Interesting, he's also co-founded a travel venture as an entrepreneur. Maybe at some point during the session, just a little bit of insight into how that came about. So he holds an MBA from Birla Institute of Technology, Ranchi, and has attended the London School of Economics on a Chevening Fellowship. Welcome, Aloke. Our next panelist, Amit Madan. He is the Group President and CEO of Thomas Cook India Limited, India's largest integrated travel services company. He joined Thomas Cook in 2012, and he's responsible for the diverse portfolio spanning technology, e-commerce, and shared service center for the group companies. His passion for customer experience drives him to change various processes and implement new systems to enable different businesses in the company for smoother operations, online customer acquisition, and of course, digital transformation. Prior to this, Amit had also joined the Fairfax Group in 2002, being one of the founder members of ICICI Lombard. He has worked extensively in the financial services domain in the initial years of his career, and then moved on to e-commerce in 2007. Now, he is credited with having set up ICICILombard.com, the pioneering e-commerce portal in the insurance space. Amit is an economics honors graduate from Delhi University and an MBA from Sydenham, Mumbai. Welcome, Amit. Thanks for being here with us today, and I'm hoping this is going to be an interesting session, given the times that we are in, right? So I quickly want to start by saying that people are traveling more than ever, and according to a report by World Tourism Organization, it is estimated that by 2030, a global population of 8.5 billion people will take approximately 2 billion international trips. I'm not even counting the domestic, but this is just international trips, right? Travel has progressed by leaps and bounds, and so have the travelers. Millennials have played a significant role in this paradigm shift. They love to travel and are also passionate about the new technologies that enables them to do this traveling. This combined interest has given way to a new context where social media, apps, blogs, curated contents, and much more have an important part to play when it comes to planning a trip on the go. And when I say on the go, this is them, with their mobile devices planning the trip, right? And it is so prevalent that according to a Google travel study, 74% of these travelers plan their trips on the internet, right? Or mobile devices. while only 13% still use travel agencies to prepare them. I mean, if I had to go back maybe 10 years, the numbers would have been the other way around, right? But then it's changing drastically. And this is greatly driven by internet and mobile technology as we speak. All right. Having said that, I just want to put forth 2 points on the table before I hand it over to the panelists. First, the travel and tourism has been at the forefront of digital innovation, and it continues to be transformed at an exponential rate. Um, Over-the-counter booking of tickets has given way to online ticketing, web check-in, email boarding pass, omni-channel sites that give access to multiple aspects of travel in one location, apps being used on mobile devices, use of analytics to push intelligent recommendation to flyers and vacation planners. These are a few technological advancements that have slid into the travel industry in the last decade, along with the penetration of internet. But having said that, advances in technology are spurring innovation as we speak now. With emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, virtual assistants, big data analytics, augmented reality, virtual reality, the Internet of Things, mobile solutions, wearable technology. Now, these are all technologies that are waiting to play a very significant role in disrupting the status quo and defining new ways of working for travel and tourism in the days to come. And I'm sure our esteemed panelists will talk about them shortly. The second thing that I want to put to the table is, just when we thought we were in cruise control, COVID-19 brought travel and tourism to a grinding halt. Right now, although it's not the first time that the industry has found itself in the middle of a crisis, this pandemic has brought the industry to the cusp of technological intervention, which is anticipated to change the face of the entire travel sector. Right, the challenge posed by COVID-19 crisis has only acted as a catalyst to expedite the digital transformations and adoption of new technologies across industries and tech sectors, not just travel and tourism. So amidst the lockdown and stay-at-home orders, digital adoption and consumption is on the rise, with consumers now expecting contactless technologies, including biometrics, mobile solutions, connected holidays, end-to-end planning, amongst others, as a basic prerequisite for safe and seamless travel experience, right? And I believe we have the technology stack currently available in the market to enable those. So with those two thoughts out there, let me first hand over the mantle to Alok to kick us off with the panel and share his thoughts on how the current and emerging tech will pave the way for future travelers. Sorry, Alok, if I put you on spot, but I just thought, with what I ended, I think it just made sense for me to bring you in first.
So thank you, Hari, and hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here virtually with all of you. Hari, we are right in the middle of the second wave, and it seems a little out of place to talk about digital transformation. Uh, just as we've hit a new high, a sad new high in the number of infections and deaths.
Sure.
Uh, but if you take a few steps back, uh, the history of pandemics shows that eventually we overcome it, or we learn to manage it. So there is most certainly light at the end of the tunnel. Uh, the short-term disruption to travel is very evident. We have never seen destruction of both demand and supply at the same time and at this scale. Uh, so that's the short term outlook. But the long term India travel story remains intact. So most of the studies that I have seen, they seem to show that by in about 3 years' time, depending on which segment it is, because they say that domestic is going to revive first, followed by short haul, regional, international, the space that we are in, Air India Express, and then the long haul. But everybody seems to agree that in about 3 years' time, we will return back to pre-pandemic levels. And in fact, when we made our budget for the current financial year, we had assumed, which we made in sometime in January, we had made the assumption that by end of financial year, the current financial year, beginning of the next financial year, we will go back to pre-pandemic demand levels, the segment that we
Sure.
operate in. The other study that I have seen is the recent one, which takes into account the second wave, and that seems to show that the recovery will be pushed back by 3 to 6 months. So this is what the experts are saying. Now it all depends on how things pan out, fingers crossed. But probably in about 3 years' time, we get back to to some sort of normalcy. The question on everybody's mind really is in our industry as in other industries is what sort of landscape is going to emerge once we get out of this. We will certainly be way smaller, but things will be different. The nature of demand has, like you mentioned, the nature of demand has probably changed. Uh, uh, Consumer behavior would have changed. So a lot of things would change, and we still don't know very much about what sort of environment to expect. So when you talk of digital transformation, to my mind, digital transformation is really about the adaptation of a legacy model to the internet age. And of course, you use technology in that. Uh, but I really think we are talking about rebuilding an entire business model once
Mm.
we get out of this. And in some ways, it is almost like building a startup. So you have the technology landscape as given, and then you build things up uh, based on what you feel is right. So that's my view on broadly on the digital landscape and how the recovery is going to pan out. A couple of things that you mentioned. One, you mentioned about acceleration of change that is already happening. I couldn't agree more with you. And this is something that a lot of people are saying as well, that there was some change that was happening. Maybe it was subtle. Maybe we didn't, entirely get our, hands around it. But there was some change happening, and now this has suddenly accelerated the change. From the perspective of the airline industry, again, you mentioned about some tech innovations that the industry has brought in. See, remember, airlines were actually the first, in a way, the first internet companies, or let's
Sure.
say the first e-commerce companies, not internet, first e-commerce companies, because the airlines were the first people to put a mainframe with a network outside of
Right.
academia and outside of the military and when you did that, you found that there was suddenly a new animal. But because we were early adopters of technology, we also got stuck with legacy systems. And uh, a great deal of change has happened around. Changes happened in the airline sector as well, but perhaps not to the extent that things could have changed.
Sure.
Uh, but a lot is happening around. A lot is happening. I mean, you mentioned about how pandemic is changing things. There is at least one airline in our region in Asia which says it is transitioning to an app.
Mm.
From an airline, it is becoming an app.
App.
And if you go to their website today, you will find that the airline ticket sale is a small part of the bouquet of services that they are offering.
Sure.
I don't know if that's the future, but clearly people are looking at things very differently now. So that's my take, and then I'm not really a technology person. Amit is, so maybe he will have better insights.
No, absolutely. And look, and I completely agree when you say it's like a startup, right? Because rightly, as you rightly mentioned, you mentioned, adaptation of a legacy model and taking it to the internet age. Right now, taking it to the internet age has, I think, primarily happened in the last decade. And then, like you also rightly mentioned, in terms of, some of the airports using, apps and other technologies to ensure customer experience is on the higher side. I think the immediate view in terms of even airline travel, boils down to in terms of how much of wait time can be reduced, and how technology is helping enable, reduce that wait time. Let's say, for example, Singapore airport has thermal scanners, right? Where just people walk through. It's pretty much contactless and seamless. Where those thermal scanners, they scan the body temperatures and so on and so forth. Whereas in other airports, it's pretty manual. You have somebody using a shooter gun taking the temperatures and so on and so forth. So I think airports across the world are evolving in terms of how seamless they can make the customer experience or the traveler's experience, thereby bringing in more footfalls into that specific airport. Again, it cuts across usage of different technologies. Now, our own airports, there are some apps that are built in which maybe if it doesn't help from a travel perspective, it at least helps from different aspects, such as shopping or at least boarding passes and mobile passes being enabled in there. So we'll get to discuss a lot more, because I've been reading up about examples where at least for travelers, for example, EasyJet and British Airways, I think they're amongst one of the few airlines that have created apps for the Apple Watch. The wearable technology that I spoke about now. They've created an app for that, and they're enabling the passengers to store boarding passes and receive real-time updates on their wrist. Right. So that way, the wait time is reduced. Travelers are kept informed and so on. And I believe from our India ecosystem perspective, a lot of these things can be enabled. Maybe it's in the works already, but we'll talk about that a little more in detail. Thanks for sharing your insights, Alok. We'll get to a Q&A. Oh, in fact, there is a question that's come through. It talks about what are the permanent shifts in consumer behavior that you foresee? Example, corporate travel as a segment being set to decline permanently. Thoughts on that?
Okay, so so what most people are saying, that certainly there are some segments which will shrink more drastically than the others. Business travel is one, and we are having this meeting virtually, and imagine if this was done on a face-to-face basis. Imagine the amount of travel it would have generated and the hotel bookings it would have generated. This seems to be if this becomes the new norm, and if people adapt to virtual meetings, and even if you reduce it by half or by 30%, it is going to impact hugely business travel. Um, Leisure travel, people say that it will recover certainly faster than business travel. Again, we don't know what sort of numbers, what shape and size. And the third segment is what we call the VFR, the visiting friends and relatives. So that segment will also depend, on, and of course, end of the day, don't forget that air travel is really a function of how well the economy is doing. So if the economy is going to shrink, it is going to have a direct impact on air travel, whatever be the segment.
Sure. Thanks for that. I hope that answers the question. Apologies, I don't know who's asked that question, so I'm just going to say I hope it answers. Talking about leisure travel, I think we have the apt person, to talk about, how leisure travel has been impacted, or rather evolved first and then now impacted because of COVID. And and how technology seems to be further improving that experience for the end customer. So Amit, all yours.
Thanks, Hari, and thanks, Alok. I think I'll start with a bit of optimism. So I surely we will start living rather than surviving as this goes along. So, and if we start living, it will create more and more need to travel, because that's what gives you that energy, and you have to explore the world, because that's how humans have been right from the beginning. So I think from the leisure point of view, definitely it will be a really like a lot of people say about the revenge travel. So there is a lot of pent up demand, and people want to explore and people want to go out. So that definitely will happen very soon. But it's all about, we have to take care of with the precautions. So I think as people get more and more vaccinated and these subsides, I think that's how the travel will start. And I think from the leisure point of view, it will recover really fast. So one is the scale of travel. So I think leisure will go back to its original. Corporate travel, obviously, there would be some impact, but initially the corporate travel will start generating much more demand. So because there is a lot of things, there are a lot of business meetings people want to do personally, face to face. There is a lot of relationship building exercises that happen. So I think those will definitely come back very soon. And we actually started seeing in January, February, almost reaching to a good percentage level of business travel. It started happening. So I think it is just a matter of time that we'll start living again.
Sure.
So with that, I would say the biggest change I'm seeing in this, in the new normal, in the leisure travel space, would be a lot from a group booking. We had a huge portfolio of the group portfolio where a lot of people, almost like a 40 people in a coach, and those group tours used to happen for Europe, Asia, everywhere across the world. We are seeing more and more demand for individual tours. People want to take that in a very small group, in just family, with only friends, and then the whole demand changes, because then it is not about the coach. It's people want a different kind of car, and then there are not only car or a van or a traveler, or so depending upon the group size, that entire dynamics changes. Then you get into, okay, do I want a tour manager or not a tour manager? Then do I want the Indian meals, or I want to explore local meals? I want that flexibility. So I'm seeing that more and more it will move from a very packaged to more customization. And that's what we have been doing in last 1 year. We have done a lot of reimagination on this and a lot of technology improvement just to take care of this entire customization piece. Not only our sales team is empowered, but the customer is empowered to make his own package. So I think that's what the demand, and that's what the trend we are seeing as far as the leisure travel is concerned. And so that brings me to that connected trip experience. So as you were also speaking, so it's, as in more you will get into customization, each of the components of that package have to be connected. It is not about, okay, you have booked transfer somewhere, and you have booked a flight from somewhere else, and you booked the hotel somewhere else. Each one has to be interacting. If I get more futuristic, I think blockchain kind of technology will try to bridge this gap and will
Right.
become one of the tool where all the platform, all the ecosystem, all the players are coming into that, and they are able to know how my customer is traveling, and so that I can get the best experience. So the hotel guy knows that this customer, he has just landed, he has taken the transfer, and he's about to reach, so that I can do my all the check-in formalities are clear, and as soon as that person, the guest comes in, I am able to hand over the keys. So I think all these things, the connected trip would be the future. And so there were some, I would say, some baby steps were already taken, but I think more and more this pandemic has made this acceleration really fast, so that these things happen quite fast in the future. Because people, at the same time, people want to go for the entire touchless experience, as you were quoting about the Singapore airport. So, and not only the airport, some of the hotels are also working on the same. And as you go, the driverless cars and those things will start. So it's all about touchless experience, but you want to have the best of the experience. So how will
True.
these systems and the technologies talk to each other and give that kind of experience to the customer would be the thing that the entire industry would be working together to reach that place. So that would be my take as far as how it is shifting.
Great, great. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Amit. Yeah, one phrase that caught my mind was revenge travel. Trust me, revenge travel is good, but don't do it now. I did revenge travel and I came back with COVID. But yes, definitely, and I definitely get your point. So yes, people are yearning to get out. Uh, um, and there will definitely be increase in that travel, right? And as you rightly mentioned, blockchain as a technology, whilst it may be maybe in the nascent stages in terms of how it could be really implemented within the travel and tourism industry, I think if my memory serves me right, I remember reading about how blockchain could primarily be used to touch upon that the travelers database that is currently there and kind of enable this entire concept of having to travel without presenting physical IDs and identities, because whilst the data is there you can feed off that data and then make that travel a little more seamless and then connected,
Yeah.
as you mentioned as well. So yeah, definitely is is one of those things. One interesting thing, Alok, just your thoughts. United Airlines uses it uses a smart term called collect, detect, and act system to analyze different about 150, 200 odd variables that they've put in based their customer profile, which it includes things like previous purchases, preferences, etc. And they provide tailor-made offers. Now, do you see that happening? Whilst it happens extensively from a tourism perspective, Thomas Cook already possibly does that to a very great extent. On the airlines front and even on the airport side of things, I haven't seen much. So just your thoughts in terms of that, because that in itself could prove beneficial to boost the overall travel perspective from an airline standpoint. It is pretty interesting. They say collect, detect, and act.
No, absolutely, Hari. If you look at the amount of data that we collect, it's massive. And again, going back into the history of aviation, uh, revenue management developed because airlines realized that they were collecting a huge amount of data, which could be used to predict travel and predict demand. And then you could use that in a very gross way. You could use that to have your fare buckets and forecast demand for various segments of customers and then price accordingly. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the other innovation that came about was the loyalty programs, because again you collected information. Then the next logical step was that you ask customers if they are okay with the airline using that database for something, and then you develop your loyalty program around that. And the whole idea of the loyalty program is that you generate stickiness, you recognize the customer's lifetime value.
Right.
So the next steps are beginning to happen now, like the one you mentioned for United. More and more airlines are realizing that they have enough information about the customer, and we are one of the few industries where customers are required to share a lot of information. So if you look at an international airline, you are collecting, name, address, passport, contact number, email ID. And if the customer is willing to, allow you to use that information for, let's say, for marketing or for any other purpose, then it becomes a sort of win-win for both the airline and for the customer.
Sure.
It is absolutely the next leap in the airline industry, where we will learn to utilize that information much better using the technologies that are existing, the ones that Amit mentioned. And the other interesting thing he talked about was about how uh, travel is going to get sort of personalized.
Mm.
So you had again, going back to revenue management, because my background was revenue management, we always looked at things in aggregates, and we
Right.
forecast demand as an aggregate. We used proxies for segmenting customer. But the next step, the next logical step is customization at an individual level. Now imagine a scenario where you are actually able to customize pricing,
Hmm.
just product features, but pricing for individual customers. And
Sure.
the fundamental basis of our market segmentation is willingness to pay. So
Right.
yeah.
Fair enough. Thanks for that. There's a question from the audience. I think probably both Amit and Alok, both of you can provide your views on this. The question goes: are there travel trends that we can see emerging from the Europe and Israel, who have already vaccinated more than 50% of their population? Any key lessons for India?
Yeah, I think Europe, if you see, like most of the countries in Europe are opening their borders within EU. If you are inoculated, if you're vaccinated, so please feel free to visit the beaches. So that's how but everything is happening in a bubble way. It is not like full explore it. So France is opening their borders in 4 phases. So already it's in the go. So first phase will happen soon. By fourth phase, I think by mid-June, it would be quite open. So I think that's how most of the countries are taking, and that's the way I think India also started. So let's say in the domestic travel, most of the places you can visit. Then you had Dubai and Maldives opened up. Then slowly, more of the countries. But now with the second wave, again, it will restart in the same way. But I think with vaccine on our side, so I'm seeing that the new technology, which is again a COVID pass or these kind of things that are being worked on. A lot of companies, a tech company, and this is one piece which only technology and digital transformation can provide. No
Mm.
amount of paperwork. So it's the COVID pass again will become like more than a passport and visa. Do you have this? And that is also going to become one of the norms. That either you have the RT-PCR test or you have the vaccination proofs, and that's how the borders will start opening up. I think that's what we can take from the US was like full open as far as domestic is concerned. I was just talking to my colleague in US, and from the domestic point of view, demand is almost back and quite and hotels have started doing very well. So there is a lot of travel already happening in the domestic front. In India also,
Sure.
we saw the domestic demand really. So in the New Year's and those times, there were no hotels from the leisure point of view available to book. So that is the kind of demand you saw the crowd in Goa and the kind of hotel prices shot through the roof. So obviously there is a lot of pent up demand and things will happen. It's just a matter of time, and we have to be obviously the health first. We have to be safe first, safety first. As soon as the safety thing, there are certain protocols that are taken care of. I think demand would be back, and things will start seeing much brighter.
Mm. Mm. So if I possibly link that back to potential technology that could be utilized, to bring about those measures of safety. Where do you see biometrics and the use of mobile technology in terms of these? It could be a COVID pass, it could be a boarding pass for all you know, right? So I mean, in today's scenario, it's been a while since I've traveled, but I'm sure it still remains the same. While we use the mobile phones to enter the airport, we show the boarding pass and so on there. Before we board, there's still aspects of the fact that you still need to at some point print out that boarding pass and so on and so forth. I mean, there's a lot of improvements that could be done, but do you see any future technologies, such as one example was thermal scanning that we spoke about, but then there are quite a few other examples in terms of the actual the gates itself, right? If that is there scope for automation using technologies such as biometrics in these mobile passes being used, do we see that coming in the very near future?
personally, I see more than biometrics, FR is going to take the facial recognition, because some people is still with this. You want to go the entire touchless experience, and FR provides that entire touchless experience. So more than
Sure.
biometrics, I'm seeing FR taking a lead, and we'll see how it goes. But definitely, facial recognition would be one big thing which will get accelerated for this. Biometrics definitely on the it's already happening. A lot of things we are doing just with the thumbprint, so that is already there. I think FR is my take.
Right, right. Now, interesting because I think the New Zealand. I had my cousin who came down from New Zealand just before the second wave kind of kicked in, right? And he was talking about how that airport has introduced biometrics for baggage dropping. Just to ensure that even that aspect of the travel becomes touchless and contactless. So I think the fact that these technologies can be used across the entire travel, toll gates or pit stops for an individual, I think the potential is definitely great, and it also kind of links in with the question that's just come in. In the advent of the pandemic, what are the different contactless technologies that can be used? Right. So I think we had our answer here in terms of facial recognition that will play a crucial role. Of course, biometrics is playing a crucial role, and you have your mobile technology, which is already playing quite a big role in terms of ensuring some aspects of your travel do become contactless. Right,
One
but any
more
other
I can,
thoughts?
yeah, one more I can add, Hari, especially in the tourism. I'm seeing that maybe wearables will also start playing a role, especially
Right.
in the crowd management, and that will become very important. Till now, like if you are standing in queue and in herds and going to Eiffel Towers and all that happens. In fact, you can ask us how the tour manager escorts the entire group, and just to manage that entire thing is a Herculean task.
Yeah,
But I
I've
think
seen
as
flags going up.
yeah, flag. So I think with wearables coming into the fold and mainstream, it will become much more economical. And as the price point reaches that level where it becomes a mass scale, I think that technology will definitely. I'm seeing that that will also be will become like almost like a mainstream. So as even now, if you go to, let's say, a Disney park and all, they give you that band, and then you are able to pay and you are able to do
True.
everything and stand in the queue. I think that will become like as a part of tour itself. Once you're booked, you are almost boarding a flight and you wear a band, and then till the time you're back home, you can be tracked. The duty of care can be taken care of. There would be insurance. There could be travel companies, and there would be assistance companies who will take care that your travel was totally smooth until you are back home. These are
Mm.
new kind of opportunities that will emerge, and based on these wearable technology, I guess.
Sure. No, that's a
Just
great
to
point.
just to add to that, to
Sure.
the points that you mentioned about contactless technologies and the so-called travel pass. I think it's also important to have standardization, because technologies is one. We must have standardization, because every airport cannot be having its own set of standards, and
True.
every country cannot be having its own set of standards. So that is the reason why IATA's initiative of the travel pass is being tracked so closely by so many people.
Right. Great point. I think that's an amazing point to make because yeah, without standardization, it can lead to mayhem in terms of multiple technologies doing its own thing and not talking to each other. Right. So maybe just slightly digressing. What role do you see the government or IATA playing to further strengthen the travel and tourism agenda? Do you reckon that they're also looking at technology as one of their levers to get there? If yes, just a minute on that question. I don't want to delve too deep into the government aspects, but just a minute from the both of you on why this would be important.
Absolutely, Hari. I think technology, both the government and IATA recognizes, is the key. So if you see, even in India, the Digi Yatra, the initiative, which
Mm.
is being piloted, I think, at Bangalore Airport. which uses exactly what Amit was mentioning about facial recognition, about biometric, about contactless touch points. So certainly, everyone recognizes it is key. And again, IATA is also, but IATA's standpoint is a little different. They are more to do with standardization and everyone should be on the same page. That's their effort, and they also have an initiative called, I think it's called One ID, which is equivalent to the facial recognition or biometric. And they have the other initiative which is being talked about, which I just mentioned, is the travel pass, which is the vaccine passport,
Right.
so-called vaccine passport.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah,
I
I
think
totally agree with Aloke, sir.
Hmm.
So ITA, the pass that will become a reality very soon. I think the kind of standard, because all the airports and airlines have to follow some standards. So I think ITA will have to play a big role. And government, you are already seeing whether it is Arogya Setu and Provin and all that entire digit. It's totally digital. I really love that. In fact, some of the friends from different countries also, they really appreciate the way the government has adopted digital in India and driving this entire vaccine program. I think that is something to emulate.
Mm, sure, absolutely. Now, and talking about things going digital, there is going to be a lot of data that is going to be made available, right? And with data, with customers looking to, so probably I'll point this question to Amit primarily because from a travel agency perspective. With all this data being available and with curated experiences being doled out to customers, where do you see the travel agencies reinventing themselves in terms of how their service offerings could be different with use of some of these technologies?
So as I told you about the connected trips, this is itself is deploying technology with an artificial intelligence so that your recommendation becomes far better. So one is your big data that you are gathering so much data, but what do you do of that data? So unless and until one does the customer segmentation rightly and take out the insights of that so that you do the right recommendation, that data is of not much of use. So I think that's what the data analytics plays a role. But having said that, as you rightly pointed out, it's just gathering is not using it also not enough. You have to protect it also so that it doesn't go
Correct.
into the wrong hands. I think information security, along with this, you owe a responsibility to the customer to protect their data. I think, as Alok also pointed out, we in the travel industry, we gather a lot of data, but it's our responsibility to protect it. So I think one thing I would caution anyone that please look at your security posture, relook at it again and again. So every quarter, if need be, earlier you used to do once a year. I would request that every quarter you look at your security posture, whether you have the SOC 24/7, all your data servers, your applications, all are being monitored or not. Because there is a lot and rampant cyber threats which are going on, and with this work from home environment, it has become crazy. So I'm very
Absolutely.
close to it. I'm seeing that, observing it, and this is one thing which keeps me awake at night. So there is a lot to be done by the entire industry, I would say. And
Sure.
one thing which you do shouldn't compromise on is infosec budget. So that is one thing, one advice I would give to anybody.
Absolutely valid point. Absolutely valid point. I think cybersecurity is only becoming more important, particularly because of the remote nature of work, and also because of the fact that because this is becoming the norm, not just short term, but in the long term.
Yeah.
Identities are getting digitized. It becomes all the more important to have cybersecurity, not as an afterthought, but as a prerequisite. Before you bring in these different technology levers. So definitely an absolute valid point, Amit. Thanks for that. I'm just looking for any questions that have come through. Uh, Food for thought. Can AR, VR actually replace what it feels like standing in the Sistine Chapel? Google 360 virtual tour tried and failed. So augmented
No.
reality and virtual reality, definitely, one of the emerging tech, which can have a significant impact on an end user's decision of whether they would like to travel to that place or experience it virtually. So maybe just a quick minute
I would,
on views.
Hari, I won't say it will replace, it will create the desire to experience that place more. That's all I get. In fact, a lot of content creation, we are using AR and VR and drones. And these are the things which are actually creating the most of the good videos that you see on social media now are all drones and using. So that kind of a video just enriches your desire actually to visit that place all the more rather than replacing it. So I think
True.
AR and VR is going to add to your travel need and your travel desire rather than replacing it.
Sure. Although right now the AR and VR aspects are restricted to videos posted on sites unless and until the end user also has some kind of a device that they could use to connect, via the Internet of Things and actually experience it upfront.
Yeah, but it's becoming very simple. It's like I've seen people using just the cardboard box kind of thing and just put your mobile, slid your mobile, and you can have at least a semi VR experience. So people use all sorts of jugaad in India.
Sure. There's one more interesting question that comes through. It says, with everyone moving to digital, don't you think the cost of customer acquisition becomes way higher on Google or social media? What innovation can be done to make it viable?
So I can say definitely if you're relying totally on social media and if you're depending only on advertising for your customer acquisition, it will go through the roof. So you have to have your own brand presence and your brand should attract the customer based on your services. That is very important. So there is search engine marketing and there is search engine optimization. So focus on optimization, SEO.
No, I agree with Amit. It is one thing about spending money and acquiring a customer, but then you have to retain him, and that's the real game is in retaining him because then you can spread that acquisition cost over a longer period, many
Sure.
transactions.
Sustainability is the key
Yeah, yeah.
in this. Right. Great. Great. There's one, possible technology that I haven't touched upon. I mean, we spoke about a host of technologies. I'm just conscious of time. We have roughly about 4 minutes. Um, the concept of Internet of Things, right? Amit, you mentioned about connected travel, and that connected travel is not just restricted to the airport; it continues into the actual destination, the tenure of the holiday, and till the way they possibly even come back to their hometowns, right? And somewhere there are apps that are enabled through the Internet of Things, where it could be, not just the travel bit, but also connected to the retail aspects of it, connected to the hotel aspects, the travel aspects. And this is where there's a challenge where this can bring in, multiple service providers and vendors. Do you see a challenge while we have Internet of Things as a technology? Do you see implementing this technology a challenge because it involves multiple people coming together under a single platform and making the services available over this technology to ensure it's seamless and connected?
Yes, Hari. I definitely see the implementation as a challenge, though technology is available. But there are use cases which are coming and in small pieces. And I think ultimately it has to get connected and converged. So I think there will be platforms which will emerge, which there will be open APIs to consume those APIs and give that kind of experience. The the partners who would be more than willing to because once if they consume they have to share their APIs also, so
Sure.
it works both ways. I think that's how the companies will evolve with the companies which are open mind, which are futuristic. They will open up their APIs and those platform will converge.
Great, great. Thanks for that. A couple of minutes left, so just closing notes from Alok and Amit.
Yeah, so Hari, I think we got some great thoughts both from you and from Amit, and it was learning from me for me. So many new things I learned. Uh, but just going back to what I was initially sharing with you earlier, end of the day, uh, the market is going to come back in some form or the other. It is going to come back. There's no doubt about that. We all have to be ready for that. This is a tough period. We should be using that to prepare for this new landscape. Thanks.
Thanks, Alok. Amit?
I will just say that I'm just waiting to start living again. So we are in the survival mode, but soon we'll live again.
Great, great. Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking time off from your busy schedule to share your inputs and thoughts. I just want to say before I hand over to Priyanka, so, I mean, definitely technology will reshape how travel and tourism is going to work. Transformation in the travel sector, it will all be about, I think, increasing speed and creating the agility to spot and respond to customer needs better than ever before. And leveraging these emerging technologies for maximum efficiency, not just from a customer perspective, but your own business to further enable and service the customers better, and also provide end-to-end experiences, seamless and connected travel. This will just become the norm to reinvigorate travel and tourism post the pandemic era. On that note, I'd say thank you to IAMAI for giving me this opportunity to moderate the panel, and thanks again to the panelists. And thank you to the audience for being patient with us and for those great questions. My apologies if I missed any.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so
for
much.
such a thank you everyone. Thank you for your such a brilliant discussion, Hari, and both our speakers, Amit and Alok, for being with us today and for being a part of Digital Transformation Summit. Thank you everyone for being with us today, and please stay tuned for more such conversations. Thank you.
Thank you much.